Welcome back, once again, to the realm of Final Fantasy XIV. Today we're moving on from Bismarck Extreme and tackling the final of the Extreme Mode Primals of Patch 3.0, Ravana Extreme. Ravana Extreme, unlike Bismarck, is not one massive DPS check. Instead, Ravana actually plays much more like Titan. Now, I know everybody's getting scared from that, but believe me, it's not that bad. He has a very distinct pattern that you have to follow, and a very distinct way to approach each mechanic, and it does not require nearly the precision that Titan required. Things can get a little complicated from time to time, though, so do pay attention. Now, before we actually go in, we're going to A, mark the tank, because there are two different ways to handle this fight. There is either a solo tank or a 2-tank. We're attempting a solo tank, which means we're going to have a lot more DPS. It does change up the mechanics a little bit, though. You'll note we're also calling out numbers, A, B, C, and D, and I'm putting markers down on the ground. Now, granted, I've never actually put these markers down before, and I wasn't entirely sure this was the correct place for them. Spoilers, it's not the correct place for them. All of these markers need to be rotated about 45 degrees in either rotation. So, if you see all the torches between where all of the markers are, that's where the markers are supposed to be. Now, we claimed letters A, B, C, and D. Of course, you can see A, B, and C there on the field. D is assigned for the area with no marker. I actually prefer marker D. I suppose B would probably be the easier of the two, but I'll take the blow and go with the one without a mark. But I find B and D specifically, with some markers later on, are just much easier to be in the correct position for. Now, what the purpose of these markers are, I'll get to as we get to each mechanic. Now, on pulling Ravana, of course, we're having a little bit of trouble keeping Hate and keeping him pointed in the right direction, but it all gets sorted out rather quickly. It is, however, important to note that one of the very first things that Ravana is going to do is an attack called Blinding Blade. Blinding Blade actually distributes the damage that it does to everyone hit. Typically, when you're doing a 2-tank formation, both tanks will stand aside and split that damage. When there's only one tank, you can't really do this, so instead the tank very briefly points Ravana at the party, and the entire party distributes the damage. It'll only do about 1,000 damage or so at this point, so it's really not much once distributed amongst that many people. Ravana will almost immediately follow up that with one of his seeing abilities. Ravana did something similar in the hard mode, but here it's a little bit more complicated, as he will put up 3 shields, and you have to attack on the one side that does not have a shield. You can, however, pay attention to what ability he's casting in order to know which one of these he's doing. If you see the Seeing Right, the opening is going to be on his left. The Seeing Left is going to be on his right, and the Seeing Wings is going to be on his front. Now, as I demonstrate here, if you attack one of the sides with a shield, you get hit by Revengeance, which not only knocks you back, but greatly slows you. Watch Ravana's buffs and debuffs in order to know when this actually goes down. It's always going to be the element on the far left. So as soon as that timer goes away, you can get back in position and attack him from wherever you please. Shortly after it wears off, Ravana will then attack the tank again with an attack whose name escapes me, but hits in 3 phases. The first one is unavoidable, as it's done with no cast and no preparation. However, there's a brief pause before the second and third attack go off, which means the tank then can run either to Ravana's side or through him and dodge the remaining 2. And as a note to healers, Ravana has a stomp he'll be doing periodically called Atmalinga that does a fairly hefty amount of damage to everyone in the party. Followed by Blinding Blade again. This is where the tank simply knowing what's coming is going to be very helpful, as he will need to be running through Ravana periodically in order to distribute these attacks. Now, as long as I have a moment, let's address Ravana's Bloodlust gauge. Though I'm not positive, I believe this Bloodlust gauge goes up as he takes damage, and when the gauge is filled, it will force a form change on Ravana's part. It will also give him a stacking buff, which acts then as a soft enrage, and by the end of this battle he will be doing considerably more damage than he was at the beginning. He'll be simply repeating this for a little while until his Bloodlust gauge is filled. Once filled, of course, he yells out, furious as a blaze, changes form, forcing you to retarget him at that, and he will begin casting Prelude to Liberation, one of 4 different liberation attacks that you'll be seeing over the course of this fight. However, all of the liberation attacks give you a little bit of time to lay into him, because it's a very long cast. Prelude to Liberation, when it actually goes off, does a fairly hefty amount of damage right around Ravana. So, before the cast is completed, run very far away from him and stand along the edge of the arena. In fact, you'll be wanting to make your way towards where your location marker is. Since I'm going with D, I would need to move towards the empty space, but Ravana is currently standing there. So I'm instead standing near C, so I can run towards D once the attack goes off. Prelude to Liberation, of course, does the massive attack in the middle, which you can avoid by being far enough away and then quickly run into position. Along the way, you may have to dodge through some of these strip AoEs. Once the strip AoEs go off, you'll see a large purple circle around each character, which is a liberation circle, part of his liberation attack, as well as a number of fire circles appearing. Standing in one of these for more than about a quarter of a second will put a very powerful fire debuff on you, and you'll take enough damage that you will potentially die. The large liberation circles are one of the primary reasons we're all divided up to A, B, and C, ensuring that no 2 people are too close to each other. Spread these out and make sure you're not going to hit more people than necessary with them. Taking 1 liberation circle is fine, but nobody should ever take 2. Once it goes off, the fire will clear up very quickly and you can go in to continue attacking Ravana, who will immediately start casting on his second liberation attack, simply Liberation. This is another mini burn phase, so you can attack him for as much as you can for the duration of the cast, but be sure by the end of it that you're standing directly behind him. This attack will hit in a wide area in front of him and to a degree behind him, and will probably kill you. However, it can be simply avoided by simply standing behind him, and you've got plenty of time to get there, so you've got no excuses. Once it goes off, he jumps up in the air, stay put in the middle, and watch for where he crashes down. He's going to be doing an attack very similar to Ifrit's dashes. Watch where the first one crashes down and which direction the second one crashes so you can move in the opposite direction. As he starts dashing, you start rotating around the arena to continue dodging these. 4 odd dashes later, and you can move back to the center where you can continue to attack Ravana. At this point, he'll use Warlord Shell. This is actually a stone skin effect he's put on himself, so you have to do an amount of damage to wear this away. If you don't wear it away fast enough, he'll wipe everyone. So break out your DPS pants. And almost immediately after casting Warlord Shell, he'll cast another one of the Seeing abilities, so be sure to very quickly move into the correct position so you can continue doing damage to him. Wait for the Seeing to wear off and he'll immediately use another one, so be very careful. If you see the second one wear off and you're not dead, you've probably destroyed the Warlord Shell. Of course, the tank still has to deal with a number of his own attacks, but that will then immediately bring in our main DPS check of the fight, fighting the various spirit Ganas here, as well as the moon Ganas. Every one of these that is not killed by the end of this check will add a stacking vulnerability up debuff to you. More than one or two of these, and you will wipe to his attack, not to mention that you'll still have that debuff on you for almost the rest of the fight. The Spirit Ganas go down very quickly. The Moon Ganas will need to be focused down a little bit more as they take more meat to be killed. And also note that all this time Ravana is still continuing to do all of his attacks on the tank, so DPS does not want to stand in front of Ravana, but also try to stay grouped up so the tank, if you're solo tanking it, can hit everybody with the one spread damage AoE. Every other attack is still going on and everyone needs to be prepared for it. Once all of the butterflies, however, are dead or have bloomed into wondrous swords, Ravana will start casting Bloody Fuller, his major attack. On its own, this attack will not do much damage. However, every one of the butterflies alive will increase the damage done from it. Not much damage at all. However, he's actually invulnerable almost immediately after, so you can't get in a couple cheap shots against him. Instead, take a very quick look around the arena and see where there is still railing, and line yourself up with it. Also, get away from Ravana, because he's about to do Pillars of Heaven, which is a knockback attack. If you're not between him and our railing, you'll be knocked off the edge and killed immediately. And you take more damage from this the closer to Ravana you are. But as soon as that's done, everybody crowd right around Ravana again, because he's about to do another attack, Laughing Rose, which, much like the attack from before, actually spreads the damage out to everyone hit by it. So everybody crowds right back up on Ravana again so the damage can be spread. Even once spread, that's going to hurt. Following that, you'll see a red mark appear above someone's head. This is actually a mechanic called Prey, and Ravana is about to give whoever has that mark over their head a very bad time. So what that person needs to do is very quickly run over to where the tank is, where you'll see them simply passing through the tank. Well, they were trying. We'll put the mark on the tank, letting the tank eat all of these powerful hits while the DPS stay safe. Now, very briefly after those are actually finished, you'll see 5 of these orbs appear. If you're a melee DPS, stay stacked very close to Ravana. If you're not melee, stand very far away behind Ravana. And as soon as you see these orbs appear, melee DPS run between them and get back where the mages are. You'll also almost immediately see Ravana start casting a very large directional AoE on the tank called the Rose of Hate. The tank is going to have to run between these orbs to get clear of that directional AoE, and then as soon as it's clear, run back in front of Ravana again. These orbs, on the other hand, are going to be tethered to us, and we're going to have to chain them around the arena. The tank is going to have to slowly rotate Ravana away from the party because Prey is not done, and the tank is going to be hit by many, many powerful waves. It's a bit of a dance, but honestly, as long as each person knows their own role, it's not too terrible. And that should then push you into Ravana's next phase, where he starts casting Swift Liberation. Swift Liberation again has a very long cast time, so take this opportunity to do as much damage as you can. However, about 3/4 of the way through, you'll start seeing swords appear above everyone's heads. A 1, 2, 3, and 4 swords. This and the following attacks are really what kills more parties than any other in this fight. Your first priority at this point is getting to the letter accompanying your numbered of swords. 1 sword goes to A, 2 swords goes to B, 3 to C, and 4 to D. I have 4, so I'm running to the open spot, taking a quick look around to make sure I see where it is. Now, what Ravana's going to be doing at this point is from where he stands in the middle of the arena, he's going to dash towards person marked number 1. And from there, dash to person marked number 2, and then 3, and then 4. If you are not marked with a sword, run to D first. This ensures that you will be free of his initial dash, because when he dashes from the center to 1, everybody in the way is also going to be hit, and it hurts. If you get hit by 2 of these, you will likely die. So everyone runs to 4 for that very first dash. When you see Ravana dashing towards you, run towards him. This ensures you don't accidentally get clipped by his next dash to the next person. After his first dash is done, everybody can run back to the center, except those marked with swords, so they can continue to be safe from the remaining dashes, as he goes from A to B, B to C, and C finally to D. And this is the point where I knew I had messed up the location for all of these letters, as this cross in the center of the arena will always appear in that orientation, and had I rotated these letters 45 degrees to the right, everyone would have had a corner all to themselves. Because we get to see, once again, the liberation circles, which means everyone needs to spread out and very quickly get to their assigned locations, so these liberation circles don't stack up on too many people. Following that, everyone crowds back in the center of the arena. Swift liberation is immediately followed by final liberation, and final liberation starts with not only the similar long cast time, but also the prey mark appearing on 2 different people's heads. If you get marked with prey here, you are to run to either A or C. Do not run to B, do not run to D. B and D are the safe spots that everyone else runs to. The prey attack should be eaten by a tank, however we only have the 1 tank. The tank's going to take which one he can. However, the prey mechanic itself won't kill a DPS in 1 shot. So, if you happen to have prey on you and you're a DPS, just go to A or C, and if the tank doesn't take it off of you, eat it. This will be a dash out either side of Ravana, who should be in the center of the arena, towards A and C. From there, you'll see the liberation circles appear yet again, so everybody make sure to get in position. If you didn't get hit with prey, and if you don't have a liberation circle on you, at this point you can actually simply run to the center of the arena to be safe from pretty much everything. In fact, you need to, because as soon as those liberation circles go off, you'll see a very large donut AoE where the only safe spot is in the middle of the arena. So everybody to the middle, and then immediately everyone to the outside edge. And if you've lived through that mess, congratulations, you've lived through more than most parties lived through. That combo will kill most parties. However, if you've lived through it, you've lived through every mechanic in this fight. At this point, you've seen everything that Ravana can do. All you have to do now is continue until he's dead. You just saw him put up another Warlord shell, so we're dealing with that yet again. This is, of course, going to be followed immediately by the Seeing abilities, so get in position, churn through the Warlord shell, and continue attacking him until he's dead. These are the same mechanics you've seen all up until now, and by this point you should be well aware of how to treat each one, whether or not he's working in a pattern or not. At the very beginning of it, though, he will actually hold off on doing any other major mechanic for a little while, so you've got a fair amount of time to simply burn him down. The only thing to really be aware of is once he changes form twice over, he'll start casting another liberation technique. And the liberation attack that he does is random. It can be any of the 4 that we've encountered thus far. Here he was casting Swift Liberation, so we were all marked with the various swords. We, however, thought we could beat him in time, so we didn't really get in position for this. Well, I did. But we managed to live through them still, and now all we have to do is deal approximately 1% of Ravana's health as soon as we manage to actually get to a point where we can hurt him again. But that's it for Ravana Extreme. It's a heck of a fight, and to be honest, I rather enjoy it. It's a fun fight, but you need a group of people that know their mechanics. Until next time, everyone.